Greetings and salutations, and welcome to a special edition of On the 50 with legendary Delta head coach Mike Vicars. And Mike, people think, hey, we're bringing Mike Vicars in here. We're going to get all beefed up about the game this week, and you've got these guys prepared to play. You've had some great games this season. You're 4-3, but very easily could be 7-0. But that's not what we're going to talk about today. Maybe at the end, a little bit. Many of you know Mike Vicars, a legendary player at Liberty Center, and was a part of one of the all-time great teams in Liberty Center folklore, the 1980 Orange Crush team that we all loved. I was 10, got a chance to spend a little time on the sidelines as an observer as a kid, and those guys were my heroes. That whole team was my heroes. The town was abuzz and the energy, and I think the program had always been generationally great with Minor Kirshner, Norm Decker, Ron Rollins, Hip Klotz. We've had good years here, but that was a special year, Mike, and I wanted to talk a little bit about that. But quickly, for those that don't know, and I think we all know, Mike has spent 40-plus years in the coaching profession, 30 as a head coach. This is his fifth stint at Delta. No shock that they're back to winning ways and great, tough, hard-nosed culture. 62 years old, 201 wins. He'll deny it, but he's a Hall of Famer. And I think it's important to put that in perspective. We're not dealing with just the average Joe here. We're dealing with Coach Mike Vicars, and Liberty Center does respect that. So welcome in, Coach. We're glad to have you here.
Yeah, thanks. Anytime you get a chance to come into hometown, it's great. It really does. I love my hometown. Always have loved my hometown. And so being here and getting to talk with you guys a little bit, it's going to be fun.
Well, you're one of us, and that's part of it. Even though you're a rival, you're still one of us. And let's kind of reach back to that 1980 team, and I think that was such a fun year here. You read all the Blade articles, you do the history on it. You played on that team. You guys were right up against it. That Archbold program at that time was just so good. But talk about a little bit about what you remember. And at 62, you've had lots of coaching experience, and but I think that has stuck with you throughout your career.
Oh, no doubt. That was one of the things that we've talked about this week in our team meetings, and talking about the lore of Liberty Center and where it's gone through and where it's at now and all those types of things, and all the way back to when I played, and as you shared, in the 80 team. And that 80 team was magical in so many different ways, so much attention that year, so many good guys, and led by Jim Meeker and some other great coaches on that team as well.
John Kusher, Ron Rollins,
Al Furco.
Oh, yes, for sure.
It was a great time. But I think what people don't realize, and I shared this with the kids about what's possible, what comes over time, is what led up to that season. And I had talked about when Denny's IGA was down here in the corner, and when you would come out to the front of that, there was an old payphone. And so when I was in school, like 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade, and we would go to football games, that was the point where I would go back and I would call my mom and on that payphone, which people probably don't even know what a payphone is.
You put a dime in or a quarter in? Was it a dime, nickel?
I think it was like a dime. and Mom would come and get us there. But what a lot of people didn't realize, that was a really tough era for Liberty Center football. I don't think people would realize how tough an era that was. I just don't remember more than one win in a season for many, many years in a row. And as a matter of fact, leading into my senior year, as a freshman, we were 1-9.
Mm-hmm.
I remember one of my favorite all-time coaches, Hip Klotz, coming on the bus at a rainy night. I can't remember the team we were playing near the end of the season, and telling us all he wouldn't be back, and how upsetting that was.
Took the Napoleon job, right?
Yeah, and that was hard to see it. Coach transition. Turned around, Jim Meeker came in. We were sophomores, and a lot of us played. Didn't really deserve to play, but a lot of us young guys played, and we were 1-9 again. And then my junior year, that was a 2-8 year. We exploded. We doubled our wins, but it kind of ended bad. We played Montpelier at home. On a last night of the year, they were putting it to us pretty good, and I remember at the end of the game, a fight broke out.
Yes.
The lights got killed and all that stuff. And,
well, that was Hobie Krause, and I remember that Jim Meeker told me the story.
Yeah.
Hobie was kind of wheeling it up a little bit on us, and it was not a good thing here. The next year, you put it on them, and Jim said, Hobie, why don't you just shut your mouth? Like something to that extent, like you did that to us, welcome to it, right?
Well, yeah, he did. And I remember in 79, at halftime, we were really getting whooped. And Coach Meeker came in, and in that metal building, which still stands
Yep.
and is much more fixed up now than it was at that time. There was old pop machine in there, and Coach Meeker laid the wood to that pop machine. And I kept thinking to myself, I'm like, whoa, he is really mad, And I kept thinking a pop's going to roll out. What's going to happen when a pop pops out of that thing and rolls down out of the bottom? But, it was really something. And we did put it to him the next year. We opened with, ironically, a very close friend of mine is Bob Owen.
Oh, yeah.
We talk all the time, almost daily. And Bob Owen was the coach. We opened with Antwerp that year, and Bob Owen was the head coach.
Wow.
And in that game, we put it to him pretty good. And I remember back-to-back weeks, I had long fumble recovery for touchdowns, and one of them was right in front of Bob. And I still give him a hard time about it today. I've got it on VCR somewhere.
Another coach, 47 years
Yeah.
in the business,
Yeah.
and a turnaround artist himself.
Yeah, 250 some wins, really close friend of mine. But then that next week, I remember, Jim saying those things, what you said, and we I think we beat him like 62 to nothing or something. It was something really bad. And but that was the start of magical things. The Orange Crush. Defense. I remember talking about the IGA down here. They brought in the Orange Crush trailer.
Yes.
And Tiger Terrible towels.
Oh, yeah.
And then if you remember way back when, the Toledo Blade had the Parade magazine that was always in the middle. And on that front page of that section, I still got it at home, was the press box. And we were kicking off. I think Randy Huffman was kicking off. And there we go. And it was a big story. And, Jack Slagle was in there, the old superintendent. And my
legend.
And my grandfather had some Red Daly had some comments in the paper. It was a fun time, and like you said, so many good guys that were on that team.
I mean, I talk about Roger Weeks and Mark Mueller and Kruger and
Chris Rollins.
Chris Rollins was a great player on that team. Who was the center? Van Order. Chris Van Order? Was it Chris?
Casey.
No, Casey Van Order. Oh, what a player, right?
Yeah. And then you had Terry Bodenbender and I split time at fullback.
Schwartzlander.
Well, we were fullbacks, but you might as well put a 60 number on us because our job was to kick defensive ends out. And Schwartzlander, I've told this story to my teams over the years. When Mike Schwartzlander, he was one of the meanest players I ever played. I used to have face mask bruises on my back all the time because if we ran 56 power and I didn't get that end kicked out, he was going to let me have it. And that was his face mask was going to go on the back of my back. One way or another, there was going to be a hole there. And he was something else. And he had moved in.
From Defiance, right?
Yeah, just terrific player. And he changed the world for a lot of us because of the fact that, he kicked the tailback. And he actually... The irony of the story here is, players get mad over the years because you have to move them to different positions and whatnot. And, well, my senior year, I was a captain on that football team, and I was an inside linebacker. I wasn't as good as Mike Schwartzlander. And we were going into that last week of our season, or to kick off our season, and I didn't have a starting job. Schwartzlander was better than me. And Jim called me in his office. He said, we got to get you on the field. Will you move? And I said, I'll do anything you want me to do. And he moved me to defensive end. And, that very first game, I get that long 80-yard touchdown return on the fumble, and I'm like, wow, this position's easy.
Well, probably as a coach, you've had to do that many times to players, and you know that pain. I've done it a few times, and I'm a running back coach. You know what? Not on this team. You're a center, and they absorb that role, and you become better for it. You did the same thing in that era. That seniors did because the juniors were very good.
Yeah, for sure. And you sometimes nowadays, I have to do that, and I can lean on those experiences a little bit of how it feels and how sympathetic you can be to kids, because kids are out there. You're trying to build football teams with them, but they're out there for themselves first, because that's how you attract them, and they want to be a star and those types of things. And not every kid can be a star on the team.
Well, let me tell you, Roger Weeks comes to Shiloh Christian Union Church from time to time, and I am 54, and I am not small, and that man scares me, and I always looked up to him. Mark Mueller I thought was a great player.
Yeah.
I thought Kruger was a great player. Just that offensive line, such a bunch of smart dudes opening up big holes.
Yeah.
Carpenter,
Kevin
Carpenter, great wide receiver, former quarterback.
Yep.
I think Kirk Chambers, my brother-in-law in that year, was the quarterback.
He was our quarterback.
And was it Rob Elling was another wide
Rob
receiver?
Elling was
speed.
The whole team, I would say, I was a pretty fast guy, and I was probably was fifth or sixth on the team in speed. I mean, there was the Hill Boys, you know.
Oh gosh, oh gosh, forgot. How can you forget about the
Yeah,
Hill Boys?
yeah. I mean, we're going to leave somebody out, and we're going to feel terrible about it. But that's what that team was. It was speed. Really had no size. Roger was the only real big dude on the team.
Yeah.
The rest of us were just fast, fast, fast. And what was really unique about that season, that momentum built each week after week after week. Yeah, we were 9-0, and so was Archibald. And John Downey was in his second or third year. And we went over to Archibald, and they got us. And they were a pretty good team. They went fairly deep. If you remember at that time, there was only two teams that got into the playoffs. We were one of them. We had to play Calvert. We lost them. They won it all.
Yep.
And
they got you good, but that was a great experience for
sure,
everybody involved.
For sure. And I think, you know, those that was a team that kind of showed you what was possible.
You know, it's funny. There was some leftover when I got here and started playing in junior high in '83. There was some leftover towels, the towels that you had, and I wore a Orange Crush defense terrible towel in my pants.
Yeah.
In my entire career, just to show, you know, patronage, to show honor to that '80 team.
Yeah.
I don't know if I have that anymore. I know I've got a memorabilia box, but that '80 team dominates that box. I wanted to go one more question on that '80 team. We all love Jim Meeker. If you knew Jim. Jim was my principal, and I got kicked out of typing class with Roger Gardner's typing class, and he goes, "You go to the principal's office," and I'm like, "Okay, I love Jim Meeker." Jim shut the door, and 8mm films of you guys always had a cold Coke ninth period, so Jim and I had a special relationship. But Jim Meeker was an innovator, a motivator, and a very inspirational person to be able to turn something around that was really in the dumps here for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about any time you're going to turn a program when it's down so long, it's going to take a special person that's going to have patience and a vision, and you're going to strive for that vision all the way through. And he was that type of guy. He wasn't probably the era of football is a little different now. I think as coaches we're all kind of somewhat close to our players now. I think it's a necessary aspect. You know, he wasn't super close to us. He was close to a few of us, and I was one of them. And you know. He was a tough guy. I remember, you know, the up downs again and again and again. I can remember hating him. I can remember saying, "I'm not getting up. If he goes one more, I'm not getting up." And you would keep getting up. And he was just that kind of guy. And you had mentioned before he had some good guys around him. And you know, Ron Rollins was one of those who was his defensive coordinator. And that's the type of guy he was. He was able to, you know, use Ron to his strength, and Al Furco and John Kusher. You know, every night at the end of practice, I hated the words that Meeker would say. He'd go, Mr. Kusher, a little conditioning, please."
Oh, yes.
He said that so many times. But he was great. I would spend time when he lived in McClure. I would drive over and spend time at his kitchen table learning about football. And I remember when I got the call the day that he passed away, and he was superintendent at Old Fort at the time.
Yep.
It was a really, really sad day, and going to his funeral and whatnot was hard. But those guys, you know, we've all had those guys in our lives that are really important, and especially me, growing up without a dad. My dad died when I was 9, and he was a very strong influence on me. And to think that there's so much of an influence that for 40 years I've done this.
Think about that for a second, too. I think the roots of your desire to turn around programs I think part of that lies in what Jim had to do here. And Ron Rollins had won a lot of games here. He followed Norm Decker, a real hard act to follow. Norm's a Hall of Famer, 44-29 here, and Ron won a league championship. He did that. Barry Kern always corners me. You got to put him in the Hall of Fame for what he did. Loved Ron Rollins. I told you that before our interview, but I got to believe some of the foundation of your desire to turn programs around and make an immediate impact, and your entire career says that, you've got to give some of that credit to Jim Meeker.
No, there's no doubt about it. I mean, I think it's just one of those things where I think the strength of Jim Meeker was to make you better than you thought you were. Mm-hmm. And I think that's when you talk about turnarounds, that's one of the big keys. Kids don't think they're very good. They're not very healthy from a football mindset standpoint. You have to fix that. You have to cure their woes. And that's what he did best. And I think that's probably one of the biggest influences that he had on me, for sure.
Well, certainly you've brought that to about every single program, you know, that you've coached. And an interesting one, and you probably looked at our agenda and said, well, why are we going to talk about that? Why are we going to talk about that? Obviously, it's easy to talk about all the wins, the turnarounds, the 2003 state semifinal, the 2008, the Swanton years. I mean, there's so much good there.
Yeah.
But you had some tough times, and they weren't 2 years, Mike.
No.
They were a lot of years, but you got your first chance at Holgate, and you got a chance to bring a beloved coach with you, Ron Rollins, who I loved, my baseball coach here in '85 and '86. And what was that first? You know what? You came from a successful program. You went and got your degree. I think you were an assistant coach for a couple of years. Was it at Delta?
Yeah, 3 years under Randy Linderman.
Yeah, so you were an assistant coach there. I
Yep.
mean, at Delta. So you've got roots there as much as you at Liberty. But you bring Ron over, which was had to be a lot of fun, a lot of reverence there, because he really enjoyed you. Talk about the Holgate experience. I thought that was a very interesting one for you.
Well, it was very unique in the sense that, I think when you're young, you think you know everything about everything, and you're going to solve the world's problems as far as this coach, and you're going to be great. You're going to be great. And, I needed a job. I got out of college, and Paul Wayne was the basketball coach, a legend himself.
Absolutely, legend.
And they had an opening, and I applied, trying to find a job, and I was an industrial arts guy, and followed the likes of Duff Medeiros and Tom Kern. I fell in love with the industrial arts at the time when I got my degree, and well, lo and behold, it's hard to find an industrial arts job and one that would couple with being a head football coach. But Holgate had a job, and they actually made me a reading teacher. And
I ate a reading.
And
it was a little bit of a stretch.
And it was 6th, 7th, and 8th.
Ooh.
Lots of hormones flying around, and it was crazy stuff. But Dial Roth, who was the superintendent there, I don't know if he was too keen on taking a 23-year-old on as a head football coach, but he was if the right guy came along. And, he had mentioned that he had a relationship with Ron, and that's where that conversation started. And that's how we ended up together. That's how I actually got the job. I probably don't get that job if
not Ron.
Yeah. And, and to have a guy like his knowledge to come with me, because we were going door to door, knocking on door to get kids to play football. I can remember going to New Bavaria. I hadn't been to New Bavaria too many times in my life, and literally going door to door and talking to kids about playing football. It wasn't easy. I was still trying to define who I even was. And, that was a rough time. I mean, we went 0-10 right out of the gate, and 1-9 the next year. There was some people came down on me pretty hard, which was an eye opener. You didn't realize some of those things when you're an assistant coach. You never see that side of it, and I decided at that point that I probably needed a reboot. And that's how I ended up going on from there. But Holgate was fun. Good friends, still to this day. They're doing a great job playing 8-man football now. They've got a new school. Everything's all changed over there.
Yeah.
But that was kind of the thing. It was just like, okay, and even from there still wasn't, I don't think, an awakening to the level that I needed to be as a head coach.
Such a young coach, and having Ron there as a mentor. And
yeah.
I love the story that, Mike, I don't know about you, but I know about Ron. So if you bring Ron, you have a chance. But
yes.
I know that Tim Bowers went to Holgate there for a stint. Did a really good job.
Well.
That was kind of the last era where they got, I think, won 5 in 6 games. And Tim now with WNDH and a former Liberty Center player himself. The Holgate experience gets you to one way or the other the Ada experience, which yet again was a colossal rebuild, an 0-10. I think you had a 1 win, 0 win, 1 win. I got my notes here. You went 1 win, 0 wins, 3 wins, exhausted a bit, but you go 5 wins, 4, and then in '94 you get the prize with 8. That was a bigger, but you were more mature. You had learned from your Holgate experience, and you weren't going to give that up, and you got to that rebuild you wanted to get to at Ada.
Yeah, I think there's a couple things here, Scott, that can add to that. One is mentors. After that, when I first got there, I was replacing a coach that had been let go, and the assistant coaches were not happy about that, and so they didn't coach. And then I had a lot of young, inexperienced coaches helping me, and here I am, young, not being that good myself. And we had, like you said, a couple of tough years there. And 2 things happened that were a major revelation for me. One was I sought out help from others. Skip Bachman, John Downey were 2 that were really important. And then I spent, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 times in Charles Buckenmeyer's basement about learning about being a head coach and things like that. But I also had those 3 assistant coaches that had left. they liked me and they came back.
Mm.
And Dave Allen and Greg Grimslin and Denny Simon, those three specifically, they were good coaches and they helped mold and shape me. And so when you talk about what led up to getting to that 8-2 season, they were a big part of that, and they were a big part in helping shape me. Because when you talk about the Skip Bachman era, and then all of a sudden, well, now you must be talking about wing T football.
There you go.
Rex was making trips. Tim made a lot of trips down there
yeah.
that has helped shape the foundation right here in Liberty Center. And, those types of things were important. I made a trip to out to Kiski Prep, where Chuck Klossing was the guru of wing T football at the high school level. And so you had to get humble, and I sure did. After you go 5-45 or 7 and whatever it was,
the numbers
43.
get away from you pretty quick.
Oh, you look at my loss record, and a lot of it, a good balance of it happened that first 7 years, and you're like, man, you look in the mirror one day and you go like, wow, I really don't know what I'm doing. If I'm going to keep doing it, then I'm going to have to figure this out, become a little bit more humble, and that's how we got to where we are.
We won't get into the Genoa years, but you flipped that win-loss. You didn't lose much there at all. I think
good.
Your win percentage was above 80% plus there. And so you saw this dramatic transformation. You've got some Jim Meeker DNA and turnaround interest, and that's kind of the guy you've become. Of course, you've also, and everybody thinks about you're just a football coach. But you got family, you got professional pursuits. You got to think about all those things. And sometimes you talked about getting some criticism from going certain jobs. You spent 12 years at Genoa. I mean, you've been to Delta, you've paid those dues, but there is a part of that, Coach, that people don't fully appreciate. You have family, things happen with health, things happen in your profession. Those things happen to you, and you had to make decisions at certain times to accommodate things that were essentially more important to you at times.
Yeah, I think a lot of times we as high school football coaches, and I bet Casey would attest to this a little bit, is the fact that they think we're football coaches and that's it. And really, that's the small potatoes of it. I mean, I'm making more money as a football coach right now being retired than I ever have. $7,100. $7,100. Are you kidding me? For a year-round job, that takes
it's
on
relentless. It's relentless.
It's relentless. It really is. But the bottom line is, it's the day job that drives you. And through the years, I've had some different interests of different things. And when you start getting into administration, your life changes a little bit simply because of the fact that there's a lot of pressure and a lot of stress in that job, and it can pull you in different directions. And most of the time that I ever changed a job, and I'm sure some immaturity got to me at times, it was because of the day job that was, either a desire to getting burnt out in one thing and a desire to maybe shift into another. Those things happen. And next thing you know, generally, what's funny about that is that $7,100 job, that's kind of sometimes it's the drive to pull you somewhere else. They don't necessarily want to hire you as a principal or assistant principal. They want you as the football coach, and that just happens to go along with it. And I was parlaying those jobs sometimes just because you're doing that year-round, and you got to be happy.
You can't make those kind of moves without an extraordinary wife and family that's supportive. And I mean, I know Rex and Kay, but Rex was here. And, there was a rhythm of life here. He was a longtime teacher.
Yeah.
I love Rex Lindgren, all-time legend. You know Rex very well. But, your wife had to get behind a lot of these moves. And now you're approaching the end. It's a one-year decision for each year. And she's had some health issues. We've talked a lot about that. Talk about how supportive she's been and how the family has been in some of these evolutions of your career.
Well, Cecilia has been more than supportive. I mean, she's been my rock the whole way. And, you know how marriage is through the years. You have your ups and downs and things like that. But she's always been my best friend through thick and thin. And not only has she had to physically move, our children had to physically move. And when you're a football widow like she's been for so many years, you end up raising the boys. They talk about the boys, and the boys they did well when they were in sports, and they did well when they were in school, and now they're doing well as family men and careers and things like that. And I hate to say it, I didn't contribute a lot to it because I was out, for a good stretch of years, almost 10 years, I was an athletic director. And there were a lot of nights Cecilia and I ate in the training room together just to have dinner together while the volleyball game was going on or a basketball game was going on. And Cecilia is, she's made tons of sacrifices. just through all the moves and job changes and things like that, making the books balance with the money, all those types of things. And there's no way that that I could ever have done it without her.
Likely a big-time story that doesn't get often covered. I know Mandy Moeller, same thing here. Kay Lindgren, they're just there, supportive.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's lots of difficult times that they're burying to get through a season. But as you evolve now at the end of your career, a Hall of Fame career, in many of our opinions, we think you'll be in the Hall of Fame. You have kind of transformed into an advocate of trying to preserve this game. And there is a group of us that work together just thinking about players and coaches and the extension of playoffs and all of the football things that go into it. And you've been a big advocate on less is more. Let's preserve this game for the long period. Let's have kids play different sports. Let's have them take vacations. You remember a time when you could do all those things.
Oh.
And today you can't do any of those things. You're in the weight room 11 months a year. The kids want to fight for their positions. They're trying to play other sports. It's a harder game that way for the players, and you've become a big advocate of trying to get back to the future, getting it back to its roots. And talk a little bit about why you feel so strongly about that.
Yeah, I mean, life is short for us all. You learn that as you get older, and football. I mean, kids don't need to be football guys 12 months a year. It ends for us all, anyways, at some point. I think the experiences of life are really important, and I think, too, the concerns that I have is we're playing so much. We're seeing so many injuries these days. There's injuries now that existed that when we played didn't even exist.
Right.
And I think a lot of it is just so much training. It is so much hitting, and it's so much of all these different things. And I think I've changed as a coach, that's for sure. We work hard, okay? We work hard just like everybody else does. But I've had to learn coming back into it, especially the last 2 years of resting our kids and giving them mental breaks and things like that they need, that it's changed. We're coaching all the time, $7,100 for a year-round job. And I just think that it's important that these kids need these experiences. They were better cross-trainers when they were jumping off the roof of the garage and climbing trees and, running through ditches and hunting. When I would go with the Hill Boys and we were looking for snapping turtles and, and all those types of things. That was some great training, walking through the muck of a ditch, And now we want to own all their time. And you've got a son, I'm sure you've dealt with this, that if they play 2 or 3 sports, the whole summer is owned by someone else, not them. And I think that's tough. And I think that less is more. I think, I was a big advocate of reducing the playoffs.
You wanted to reduce it, as I did, to 8 teams.
I wanted it reduced to 8 teams. And if that was the case, we would probably have no chance of making it. But I think, we need to get back to the specialness of that moment, of what that's going to be like. And I think kids, you realize, Scott, we're going into week 8. Okay. For somebody that drives all the way to the state title game, this is the halfway point. That's incredible to me to say that we're at the halfway point of a season.
Week 8.
For a high school team, it's the only level of football that gets no bye week, that gets no time off. They just started at
2 scrimmages and straight through. Now, we did get a bye for the top 4 teams,
Well, yeah.
and we cut out some of those
That's
teams
true.
that probably didn't really deserve. But
Right.
that 16-team regional
Yeah.
was bizarro world.
Yeah. We made a lot of grounds on that, for sure, and I think there's more time to come on some of those things. But I love kids, and I think we've kind of forgotten about the kid, and we've elevated the game to too high of a level of what people think important, rather than the kids that are in the helmets that are running around out there.
I just don't want to pay so much price to win all these games, and then we get to be 26, and there's a lot of blank spots there because that's all we did was sports.
Let me share this with you. I've taken more vacations with my adult sons and their families than I took with them when they were children. That's sad.
Well, I think that's
Breaks my heart.
Probably why you look at it the way you do, and I think it takes time to do that. But maybe some time away, and you took some time away, but you got back into the game, and it's after that time away, after Ada, the rest is really history. You've been a tremendous coach. You don't lose much, Mike, and you got back to Delta for your 5th trip, and I want to talk about this year's team because we're going to get there here in a moment, but I also think it's important. You can't be as a Hall of Fame successful head coach without having tremendous assistance. And you talk consistently and all these different preseasons and all these different state championship runs you've made and league titles that you've won. about your assistants. You've never forgotten how much, and you love them. You have great relationships with your
Yep.
assistants. They're not just coming to work and leaving. It's dinners, it's time, it's extra. Talk about your assistants
Well,
throughout your career. You don't have to name everyone,
yeah,
but
yeah.
talk about how that makes then shapes a winner that you've been.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I think what's been fortunate about that, in just about every place that I was, and I'm looking at the board with some of those types of people, when we got together, they stayed together.
Yeah.
And let's look at one of the longer times we stayed together at Delta, and that stretch that we had back in the early 2000s and whatnot. All those guys, junior high through high school, the Randy Lindermooch, Jamie Grimms, and Bob Moore, and those guys, they were together. Nate Rupel, we were all together through that whole thick and thin. When I mentioned at Ada with Greg Grimslett and Dave Allen and those guys, those guys were a lot of fun. And it was the same way, with Tim. I coached with Tim for 10 years, and I coached with my son Ryan for almost 10 years, and those guys sacrifice a lot. The present staff that I'm with now, they're great guys. They are really great guys, and Scott Tenney and Mark Nagel and Michael Fredo, and I'm going to forget somebody here, but the guys that I'm working with now, Adam Palicki, Charlie Moore, and Brandon Bainfeld. I think I got them all there. We're all together again, and they're sacrificing. 7 days. It's 7 days. You better like each other, then you better respect each other, and I'm going to tell you, you better love each other, because they are the key. I've always said it. I'm not a band director. Band directors can work by themselves and orchestrate 150 people. I can't do it. I got to have the help, and I've probably this year relented more to the assistant coaches than I ever have. I do very little compared to the years gone by, and they've been great.
Before we get to the game this week, pretty special matchup, a good game. I think a very good Delta team, a little underrated. You've had some tremendous games and some tough losses, but one more nostalgic look back, and I think it's important to this week's game, and I think this is the connecting point for me as a longtime fan. You played on some bad teams. You were a person in this community when we were losing, and losing big, and losing year after year. You participated in a complete rebuild, and you got a chance to work and play for a coach like Jim Meeker. You were his assistant, I think, for a couple of years there after year, which is another pretty cool thing. And then the program, again, had a low point. Rex Linger comes in after a Tim Glauer in 84, 1-9. We go 0-10. I played that team. We were awful. 3-7, 8-2, and here you go, 9-1, and losing to an Archbold team that was a state champion. You see a lot of that. You can see the whole thing, and now you can look back. And I'd like for you to just take a minute and look at the Liberty Center program today and the difference. Jim had that short spurt. He wanted to be an administrator. He knew he couldn't do both back then. Principal, superintendent, he had dreams to be that, and he was a great one. So we did lose our way a little bit in the football program again in the 80s. What do you think about Liberty Center's program now as you looked through history to today?
Well, it's evolved, and it's taken building steps a long way, and it's super healthy. It's super healthy from the kid's perspective mentally, what they think about it, what the community thinks about it. But it didn't happen overnight,
right.
And I've shared that with the kids that we have, and we've talked about. I told the coaches at the preview, all the league coaches. I looked at them and said, guys, we got one or two choices. Either we kick Liberty Center out of the league because we're tired of it, or we all have to elevate our programs, especially from the mental standpoint, to let them help pull us up. And that's the goal. And, I think now when you look at it, what it's been built to it's not overnight.
Right.
It's all these years. It's about as mature and as healthy as a Division V football program can get. And most of that's listen, these kids have wonderful bodies. They look great in uniforms and all those types of things. They're extremely well coached. There's no doubt about it. Not only the head coach, but the same thing, the same assistant coaches they're doing wonderful things. But the mental aspect that Casey has maintained, the healthiness of that from pre-K into K, into 1, into 2. I got a grandson in 3 that plays out here on Sunday afternoons in the flag program. It is so healthy. I have told coaches around the area, you need to drop all this travel stuff and show up at at noon on Sunday afternoon, and copy that model, because that model is wonderful, because it's so healthy about the love of the game, and this whole community has embraced that. It's almost clinical. I mean, it's a deep love. It's
Yeah.
a deep love. But we had love. They had love for it when I played. And I know I'm kind of off topic just a little bit, but on that '80 team, we were getting beat in a rainstorm by Bryant at halftime, and everybody knows the hit, and they know the hit, Liberty hit from Kip all those years ago, and we were down 6-0 at halftime, and the dads and the uncles and whatnot, they all formed a line coming out of that out of that metal building. I think I still have a concussion to this day because some of the forearm shivers I got to the helmet coming out of there. But that passion runs that deep.
Yeah.
And it has continued, and it's greatly healthy, and you see that they're making lots of mileage out of it. People want to be here. We know the story about how people have moved in. My own son Ryan has moved in, built a house out by Davis Farm Services on Road 6, and they want to be here. And there's nothing wrong with that. Everything that they've done, it's great. And you should be very proud of it.
It's really interesting that you participated in some greatness here. You've seen some lean years as a fan and as a young person, and to see Liberty Center be where they're at today. But it's got roots from back there. All those dads and grandpas and great uncles, I still talk to them on the street, 75, 0, and 10. They're still talking about it. Dan Brown still talking about, different guys on those teams, how great they were. So I think we're pretty rooted here. I think we're pretty humble, too, because we weren't big winners, and you remember that.
Yeah, Scott, I totally agree with that, and I think that's why those roots are so deep. Even back to the Bengals.
Oh yeah.
Oh
man,
the old timers.
Awesome. Saturday.
Saturdays. You think about all those things, and then it is just, this town is football. Small town football America. It is. Anybody that loves football and wanted to copy it, this is the place that the road. I know you got the Marion Locals. I don't know the Marion Local story. I don't know those that well, but I know this story, and it's healthy.
Now let's talk about this week. Special week for you always is. I think you've always loved coming here to play. I know we talked before. I mean, beating Rex Lingern was kind of a thing for you for a lot of different reasons. Not that I don't know that Jim and Rex were the best of friends. I know John Kusher and Rex weren't, but I mean there was times, and they all grew out into that. And Rex had a great career here, a Hall of Fame career here. So coming here matters for you, and I think your players are going to be pretty energized to play this football game. I thought that first quarter last year at your place was a pretty doggone good quarter, but Liberty Center is at a place that not many programs are in today. That will cycle out someday. We'll look back and say that was quite an era. PH had an era. Archibald had an era. Delta certainly had their opportunity when their run with you as a coach. But talk about your team now. This is a tough team. They like to be physical. That's a big signature of how you coach. You run a wing T-ish based kind of thing. You got tremendous running backs, a young quarterback. Your offensive line likes to get after it. You will play defense. This team is a good football team. You've got to be really excited to play this game this week.
Well, let me clarify a couple things. Number one, I have not enjoyed playing my hometown over the years, simply because.
Sorry, strike that from the record.
I mean, for crying out loud, I love my hometown, and I've told the kids that this is not my favorite game of the year, and it was fun beating Rex just because.
Oh yeah.
He loved to win at everything. It didn't matter when
badminton, flash ball.
If you were
bowling.
ever a gym assistant for him, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But no. Our kids, I love our kids. This is, I tell you, like you said, 4-3 could be 7-0.
Watch the games on Huddle. Watch the games.
Unbelievable.
They're there.
Unbelievable. But and I feel bad for them. But and I've told them, you can't put my favorite team of all time, but this team is one of the favorites simply because they keep getting back up and they keep coming to practice every week and they fight. I don't have to. I don't have to. Proud on them at all. They do it themselves. They're great. The senior class has been great. Great leadership group. It's so hard to get good leaders nowadays. But this group, they know what they're up against. They know how to study film and whatnot, and they're a lot more mature than they were a year ago. But the theme of the week is fight, and we've seen on film teams not fight. And I've made the point to them this week. Do you want to be labeled that? And I'm not making fun of these other teams. I'm not making fun of these other players. But do you want to be labeled that? or do you want to fight this team, see what you can get done, and let the chips fall there?
Well, you got a chance to watch a first quarter against Otsego. They picked up 5 first downs and dominated the time of possession. You got a sneaky look on your face where we kind of understand what 5 first downs means in your offense. 17 play drives, 10-minute clock.
Yep.
Got a chance to watch that today. It was an impressive drive there, what you did against Archbold and the things that you've done this season. Talk briefly about how you match up against Liberty Center, your thoughts. I mean, obviously you're not going to give it all away. Casey and I talk weekly. He talked a lot about how much he respects this program, how much he respects you, the toughness, the discipline. They had their linebacker meetings this week. They've talked a lot in film. This is going to be a real game for Liberty Center. There's been some games that haven't been so real. This is real for them. Talk about the things you see in Liberty Center, and we'll get out of here.
Well, to make it a real game is definitely the theme. I think we can't change who we are. We want to be physical, and we know that they're going to hit, and we know that we're going to have to hit them back. And if we don't hit them back, it's going to be a really long night. And and the thing is we also know that we're a run-first team, and that's going to be a challenge. And we
78% run, Mike. You think that's run first a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I know it is. We have to be that team, and we're going to have to be physical to do it. And the thing that we're going to have to do, we keep getting better on defense. We've been, it's been a little bit of bugaboo at times. Depends on the matchup in certain situations. But we know the vaunted offense that we're going up against, and we're going to have to tackle. And if we can't tackle, we're going to have a tough time. And then, and one thing that we've had an edge in some games, and we don't see really an edge in this week, is special teams. Liberty Center's got some really good kickers and some dynamic returners and whatnot. And so spending a lot of time at that too and trying to get it. And we just have to play a complete game. And to be honest, Liberty's probably going to have to play a little off a little bit. And if we can create a mistake, then we have to capitalize on it and see what happens. But you're right. Owning the clock for us is important every week. We opened last week. We took the lead against PH late in that game with a 10-minute, 18-play drive. Yeah. And
I said 17 play, 18, 23. It's all the same.
We've had a lot of them.
The clock's bleeding to death on you.
Yeah. And Brandon Bainfeld talks about it all the time. It's a lot of pressure to coach that way, but it's who we are.
Yeah, well, certainly this week is going to be special for a lot of reasons. You just had about 42 minutes of it. Mike Vicars, a 30-year coach, a Hall of Famer, bringing Delta into Liberty Center, Rex Lindgren Stadium, Kip Kernfield, 7 o'clock, a 4-3 that could be a 7-0 Delta team. And, Mike, thanks a lot for taking some time to reach back into some nostalgic and some history. A lot there for you and a lot more. This could have been a 4-parter. Maybe if we were just getting into some Holgate stuff there at the beginning. But thanks for coming in and joining
You are
LC
welcome.
Tiger Sports Live, and looking forward to Friday night.